This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. It's Thursday, August 22nd, 2024. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
Tim Walz gives his acceptance speech, and Democrats also hear from Oprah. I'm Steve Futterman at the Democratic Convention in Chicago.
Former President Donald Trump is reacting to last night's speeches at the Democratic Convention.
Taking shots at your president.
I'm Ed Donahue.
Abortion on the ballot in more American states this November.
Their plan is a bait and switch.
I'm Clayton Neville.
On Wall Street, the Fed signals an interest rate cut is coming next month. Stocks were higher yesterday. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
Chicago police take a fugitive into custody blocks away from the Democratic National Convention. I'm Julie Walker.
And RFK in an unlikely pairing to announce his future plans. All ahead on America in the Morning. Day 3 of the Democratic National Convention heard from Nancy Pelosi and Bill Clinton, along with parents of an American being held hostage by Hamas in Gaza. But the night belonged to Tim Walz, as the Minnesota governor spoke to the nation as the vice presidential nominee for Kamala Harris. A recap from Steve Futterman, reporting from the DNC in Chicago.
Kamala Harris affectionately calls him Coach. Last night, the man Harris hopes to be her vice president addressed the convention. Before he did, members of his former high school football team came marching on stage.
It's the honor of my life to accept your nomination for Vice President of the United States.
For many Americans, this was their first chance to judge Tim Walz. He talked about what he has done in Minnesota.
We cut taxes for the middle class. We passed paid family and medical leave. And we made sure that every kid in our state gets breakfast and lunch every day.
He talked about the conservative agenda called Project 2025, which Donald Trump insists he had nothing to do with.
I coached high school football long enough to know, and trust me on this, when somebody takes the time to draw up a playbook, they're going to use it.
And he was able to weave in one of the favorite lines of the Harris campaign.
I don't know about you. I'm ready to turn the page on these guys. So go ahead, say it with me. We're not going back.
There were other heavyweight speakers last night, former President Bill Clinton and Oprah Winfrey, who also talked about not going back.
We won't be set back, pushed back, bullied back, kicked back. We're not going back.
The delegates were repeatedly reminded of the need to keep working until Election Day. Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania.
So are you ready to protect our rights? Are you ready to secure our freedoms? And are you ready to elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz? America, let's get to work.
Tonight it comes to an end. Kamala Harris will make her acceptance speech. I'm Steve Futterman at the Democratic Convention in Chicago.
Donald Trump and his running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, are crisscrossing battleground states, holding a rally in North Carolina. Correspondent Ed Donahue reports the former president is responding to comments made at the Democratic National Convention.
All of their killers, their murderers, their drug dealers, they take them and they're putting them into the United States, and their crime is down 72%. In fact, next time what we'll do, instead of North Carolina, we'll have our next little gathering in Venezuela, because it will be much safer than being in our country. If these people win, you're not going to have any meetings, you're not going to have anything. There'll be chaos in our country. And we just can't let it happen. We can't let it happen.
Trump pointed out in a speech in North Carolina, he took notes.
Did you see Barack Hussein Obama last night? Take little shots. He was taking shots at your president.
The other day I heard someone compare Trump to the neighbor who keeps running his leaf blower outside your window every minute of every day.
And it wasn't just the former president.
Who's going to tell him that the job he's currently seeking might just be one of those black jobs?
And so was Michelle. You know, they always say, sure, please stick to policy, don't get personal. And yet they're getting personal all night long, these people. Do I still have to stick to policy?
It was Michelle Obama who said at the 2016 convention, when they go low, we go high. Trump in his speech blamed the current White House for the deadly Afghanistan withdrawal and wars in Ukraine and between Israel and Hamas.
If Comrade Kamala wins this November, World War III is virtually guaranteed to happen. Everything she touches, she destroys.
I'm Ed Donahue.
The top stories of the day are sponsored by Sleep Number. It's Sleep Number's biggest sale of the year. Save 50% on the Sleep Number limited edition smart bed only at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com. Many states are adding the abortion issue to the November ballot. We'll have a look at that and more when America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. It's a stormy setup leading to potentially days of downpours. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton with the nation's forecast.
A front that remains stalled over the Florida Peninsula will continue to serve as a focus for numerous drenching thunderstorms not only today but through the start of the weekend, with plentiful downpours likely to produce the risk for flooding from Florida to southern Georgia. To the west of that zone, a long-duration heat wave presses on for much of the south, mainly from Louisiana across the southern plains and much of New Mexico, with temperatures near or above 100 degrees are once again expected. Interior sections of the southeast, along with the Great Lakes region and much of the northeast, have another comfortable day in store today instead, with humidity levels remaining generally low for late August. A disturbance continuing its slow exit from northern New England into Atlantic Canada will mean a few showers, especially from northern New York and central Vermont and New Hampshire northward, but most other areas can enjoy rain-free conditions and temperatures that will only gradually rise into the weekend. Another area that does not look to be dry today is the northern and central plains, where a couple of widely separated disturbances will lead to two separate areas where strong winds and hail can occur within thunderstorms through the evening. One area stretches from eastern parts of the Dakotas through northern and western Minnesota, with an area farther south covering places from eastern Colorado and southwestern Nebraska. Western states turn increasingly chilly starting today as a cold front first brings showers from northern California to western Washington and Oregon, then fall like temperatures of 10 to 20 degrees below the historical average through the weekend. In Seattle, look for clouds much of the time with showers and perhaps some thunder. Today's high 69. For Nashville, a mostly sunny and nice day is in store with a high of 85. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. Voters in more American states will be voting on abortion on the November ballot. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
Voters in Montana and in Arizona will now vote on abortion measures in November, and some political experts believe that could impact who wins the presidential election in those states. This week in Arizona, the state Supreme Court allowed the ballot measure to move ahead as planned. Groups like Arizona for Abortion Access helped raise enough signatures to get abortion on the ballot, and the state's high court ruled that process was valid.
They devised a way to defy Arizona's beloved voter protection laws, giving themselves the authority to change the abortion access laws to be more restrictive after we, the people, have approved them.
Chris Love is a spokesperson for Arizona for Abortion Access.
Their plan is a bait and switch that asks voters to give them a right to undo what we've chosen for our state.
In Arizona, the specific proposal asks if abortion rights should be enshrined in the state constitution. The Secretary of State of Montana approved a similar petition there this week, and abortion will be on the ballot in Montana. In fact, 6 other states are voting on abortion too in November. This, of course, continued implications of the U.S. Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe v. Wade and return the decisions on abortion to the states. I'm Clayton Neville.
The long arm of the law has reached all the way to Central America. Correspondent Lisa Dwyer reports there have been more arrests related to the more than 4 dozen migrant suffocations in Texas.
Guatemalan police have arrested 7 Guatemalans accused of having smuggled 53 migrants from Mexico and Central America who died of asphyxiation in 2022 in Texas after being abandoned in a tractor trailer in the scorching summer heat. The United States has requested the extradition of the alleged ringleader who was one of the 7 arrested. 6 people were previously charged. Authorities say the men were aware that the trailer's air conditioning unit was malfunctioning and would not blow cool air to the migrants trapped inside. When the trailer was opened in San Antonio, 48 migrants were already dead. Another 16 were taken to hospitals, where 5 more died. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
The Fed signals a likely interest rate cut coming. That in business headlines when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. The Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments is a fiduciary, always putting clients' interests first. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Fed Minutes and a key jobs report tops business headlines with CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Modest gains for the major averages yesterday. The minutes from the last Fed meeting came out and pointed to a likely interest rate cut coming at the meeting next month.
We like to remind investors that September is the worst month of the year. We think that the likelihood of some sort of weakness in September actually could be quite positive from our longer-term perspective. We think stocks are at higher levels than they are today by year end, and the bull market continues, but we think we're going to see some volatility first.
BMO's Brian Belsky on CNBC. Investors learned the economy added more than 800,000 fewer jobs over the 12-month period ending in March than first thought. As the Labor Department revised its numbers lower, job growth originally thought to be at more than 200,000 new jobs a month, but now coming in at about 174,000 a month, which is still quite high.
It's a sigh of relief to most economists that number came down, because 200 plus 240, 250,000 a month average is way too hot for the normal economy that's slowing down to a more steady state pace. Closer to normal is actually not just 175, but closer maybe to 100 to 125.
The Milken Institute's Bill Lee on CNBC. Ford will delay its new EV plant and cancel the 3-row all-electric SUV. It's making some changes in its electric vehicle plans.
The company is shifting its EV strategy as it tries to be more nimble about producing lower-cost EVs. It will be coming out with an all-electric commercial van, an electric truck, will be coming in the second half of 2027. They're going to be dropping their plans to build an all-electric 3-row SUV. The market's just not there right now.
CNBC's Phil LeBeau. Starbucks, with its popular pumpkin spice lattes back in stores this morning, the earliest in the 21-year history of the drink.
You did mention yesterday we would get their earnings report, and Target seems to be, well, hitting the bullseye.
Yeah, sales were actually up at Target. First time in more than a year for that chain, which announced it would lower prices a couple of months back after consumers simply shopped elsewhere and stayed away until this past quarter.
We reduced prices on over 5,000 items. We continue to see an incredibly resilient consumer. Now, they're continuing to look for value, but we've seen a pretty steady consumer environment. I think part of it is we still have a very strong labor market.
Target CEO Brian Cornell on CNBC. On today's watch list, earnings are coming from BJ's Wholesale, Advance Auto Parts, Ross Dress for Less, Kava, Workday, and Peloton. We find out how many people applied for unemployment benefits last week. We also get existing home sales numbers for July. And the Jackson Hole Economic Summit begins.
Thank you, CNBC's Jessica Ettinger. Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s next unlikely political move when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Welcome back. You're with America in the Morning. An escaped Mississippi inmate was tracked from the Deep South to a restaurant in Chicago. Correspondent Julie Walker reports on an overnight standoff within walking distance of the arena housing the Democratic National Convention.
That's CCTV video of the arrest of Joshua Zimmerman, wanted for murder, armed robbery, and escape from a Mississippi courthouse. Martin Howard says Zimmerman worked at the restaurant next to his store, which police used for staging.
They told us to get out. They said, yeah, you guys are going to get out of here. We don't want you to get shot. There's a murder suspect. He's armed and he's in the ceiling.
He says Zimmerman was in a crawl space above the restaurant next door. The police standoff stretched from Tuesday into Wednesday as they negotiated.
They said, hey, we know you're talking to your mother.
Despite the close proximity to the United Center where the DNC is taking place, the U.S. Marshals Service says there was no connection or threat to the event or those attending. I'm Julie Walker.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. purportedly intends to end his independent presidential campaign and endorse Donald Trump. NBC News is reporting that talks are still ongoing between Kennedy and the former president. Trump's running mate, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, confirmed in an interview that there's, quote, been a lot of communication back and forth, end quote, between Kennedy and his campaign. Trump told CNN on Tuesday that he'd be open to have Kennedy in his administration if he were to drop out and endorse him. Kennedy's campaign has never gained traction, and a recent campaign finance report shows over $3 million of debt. Both Kennedy and Trump are scheduled to be in Phoenix, Arizona tomorrow. America in the Morning for Thursday, August 22nd, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay. Senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
Tim Walz continues facing questions about his military record. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Continued tension at the DNC in Chicago surrounding the ongoing war in the Middle East. I'm Clayton Neville.
The campaign trail remains busy, even with the DNC going on in Chicago, with Trump and Harris both on the road. I'm John Stolnitz.
Filling the campaign coffers, we'll have the surprising numbers and an emotional plea at the DNC.
In Fort Lauderdale, Florida, former babysitter Terry McCurchie has pleaded guilty to manslaughter for the 2019 death of Benjamin Dowling. I'm Jennifer King.
Taylor Swift has publicly addressed the cancellation of her shows in Vienna. I'm Kevin Carr.
We're back after these messages. Welcome back. You're with America in the Morning. AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton has a check of the nation's forecast and a reminder that autumn is not far away.
The next part of the country that is in line for a fall preview will be the West, especially the Northwest, Northern and Interior Central California, and parts of the Intermountain West, as an advancing cold front and potent storm in its wake bring down some chilly air from higher up in the atmosphere. As these features push through the region from today into Sunday, high temperatures of 10 to 20 degrees below the historical average will become more and more widespread. There can even be some areas of frost at some of the higher points in the mountains, along with a risk for some daily spotty afternoon thundershowers that may even contain hail. The eastern United States continues to be largely dry and comfortable overall today, with a rather large expanse of high pressure in charge of the pattern from the Great Lakes through much of the Northeast and even a good majority of the Southeast. After another chilly start in many places this morning, at least by late August standards, temperatures each day and night will tend to be on a gradual rise through the weekend. However, a frontal zone stalled out over the Florida Peninsula will keep areas near that feature quite active over the next several days, with some enhanced downpours that can bring localized flooding concerns to much of the Sunshine State as well as southeastern Georgia through at least Saturday. Otherwise, the center of the nation remains the place that is most likely to face severe thunderstorms today, with two separate disturbances that can produce storms with hail and damaging wind gusts into this evening. The northern zone covers northwestern Minnesota through the eastern Dakotas, with the southern area from northeastern Colorado to portions of Nebraska and Kansas, with perhaps a dry gap in between. South of there, a heat wave continues from the southern plains across Louisiana. That's the weather across America. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
I'm John Trout. Remember to follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. Day 3 of the Democratic National Convention was the night that Minnesota Governor Tim Walz addressed the nation as Kamala Harris vice presidential nominee. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports as Americans learn more about him, Walz is also facing more questions about his military record.
Tim Walz is Minnesota's governor and a former congressman, but earlier this month was relatively obscure. Now,
Happy Walz Wednesday.
Walz will speak in prime time at the Democratic Convention.
A school teacher, a football coach.
And a self-described Midwest dad. Campaign spokesman Michael Tyler and Kentucky's Governor Andy Beshear are excited.
I love Tim Walz.
The 60-year-old Walz is in his second term as governor, and Beshear says his friend has worked wonders.
He brought Minnesota to the lowest unemployment rate of any state in recorded history.
But Walz has also faced questions about embellishing his background, from his military service to his family's fertility struggles.
Why is he exaggerating his record? He did not retire as a command sergeant major. And for those of you, this rank, that rank, it is a very big deal in the enlisted ranks. It is a seminal and big difference between master sergeant to command sergeant major, just as it is from colonel to general.
Walz continues facing questions about his military record.
He needs to come clean.
Florida GOP Congressman Mike Waltz, a former Green Beret, notes the Harris campaign has referred to Walz as a retired command sergeant major among the top enlisted ranks. Walz did achieve the rank, but it was reduced after he retired following 24 years in the Army National Guard. He left for a congressional run months before his unit was ordered to Iraq. There is no evidence Walz timed his departure to avoid deployment, and amid attacks on his record last week.
I am damn proud of my service to this country.
Walz says he should be.
Why do you have to lie about it, and why do you have to exaggerate it?
Walz and other military veterans in the House have signed a letter denouncing Walz's service.
I want to be very clear. I served in the National Guard for 22 out of the 27 years I served in the military. I know many people that for whatever reason never went to combat, served proudly. I'm proud of their service. He should be proud of his service. He says he's proud of his service. Why do you have to lie about it, and why do you have to exaggerate it?
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
As the Democrat Party touts its nominee for president inside the walls of the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, more protests surrounding the war in the Middle East are playing out in the Windy City. Following the days of protests, correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
The police confirming that dozens of demonstrators were arrested on Tuesday night when demonstrations calling for a ceasefire in Gaza turned violent. Police in Chicago came out in force. Chicago Deputy Mayor Garion Gatewood.
We welcome protests. We welcome peaceful protests.
But Gatewood said the protests were not peaceful. Witnesses told ABC 7 that the police presence was overwhelming.
I don't know if they outnumbered the protesters, but it was like, it was a lot. It was, the cop to protester ratio was way off.
Chicago PD insists that a strong presence was part of the plan.
Overwhelming doesn't mean that we were excessive. The response was proportional. In most instances, officers used less force than they could have used.
Police Superintendent Larry Snelling says officers were attacked.
We were not the initiators of violence, but we responded to it. And our officers responded exactly the way that they were trained to respond.
Tuesday night's protest found itself outside the Israeli consulate. 3 journalists among those arrested after police say they refused to leave when they were told to. Chicago PD says that 56 people were arrested, but reports from local attorneys have the number of people detained closer to 75. Demonstrations, though, are ongoing as activists say they'll continue to put the Biden administration on blast for its support of Israel in the continued war with Hamas. I'm Clayton Neville.
While most of the political world has its eyes on Chicago at the DNC, former President Trump and the Democratic nominee for president, Kamala Harris, have both been on the campaign trail the last couple of days. John Stolness has more.
Just ahead of former President Barack Obama's convention speech on the second evening of the convention Tuesday night, both Harris and her running mate, Governor Tim Walz, were 90 minutes away in Milwaukee.
This is about 2 very different visions for our nation. One, ours, focused on the future. The other, focused on the past.
Harris noting that winning the all-important battleground state of Wisconsin could be one of the keys that unlocks the Oval Office for her in November.
We have hard work ahead of us, but we like hard work. Hard work is good work. And with your help this November, we will win.
Yesterday, Trump was in Asheboro, North Carolina, his first open-air campaign rally since Butler, Pennsylvania, the site of the assassination attempt against him. Speaking behind a huge bulletproof glass shield designed by the Secret Service in the wake of the shooting, Trump warned against a Harris term in office.
If Comrade Kamala wins this November, World War III is virtually guaranteed to happen. Everything she touches, she destroys. Everything that she's touched, you look at her life. She was district attorney in San Francisco. The place went to hell.
And in a speech that focused on national security, Trump touched on the Biden administration's botched Afghanistan withdrawal, the war in Gaza, and Russia's invasion of Ukraine, promising the country will be safer under his watch.
But we defeated ISIS, we killed the world's top terrorists, we secured our borders, we achieved energy independence, we stood up to China, we protected Israel, we made peace in the Middle East with the Abraham Accords, and more. We did things like nobody ever heard of, and we brought our troops mostly back home. We didn't start any wars.
I'm John Stolnis.
Harris fundraising, Ukraine forges ahead, and AI makes your PC new again. Those stories and more when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. Apparently, the month of July was good for Kamala Harris. The Financial Times reports that Harris raised 4 times as much as Donald Trump after she replaced Joe Biden at the top of the ticket. Her campaign raked in over $204 million compared to Trump's $48 million. Harris' campaign also brought in a record 631,000 individual donations in a single day on July 22nd, topping the previous record of 450,000 set by Trump. No surprises in the Florida primary, where Senator Rick Scott and Congressman Matt Gaetz won decisive victories against GOP challengers. Correspondent Julie Walker has details on the results of the Wyoming and Alaska primary contests.
Incumbent Republican Senator John Barrasso has won Wyoming's Senate primary. In his pursuit of a third full term, he beat financial advisor Reed Reisner. Barrasso is now heavily favored to win the general election in the Republican-dominated state. Also winning her primary, Republican Representative Harriet Hageman, the first-term Congresswoman who ousted Liz Cheney 2 years ago and has had Donald Trump's backing. In Alaska's primary, Democratic Representative Mary Peltola advances to November's ranked choice general election for the state's sole House seat, getting the most votes, followed in order of votes by Republicans Nick Begich and Nancy Dahlstrom, who has Donald Trump's backing. The three were the most prominent candidates in a field of 12 running for the seat. Tuesday's primary helped set the stage for what is expected to be a hotly contested, closely watched race this fall for a seat the GOP is hoping to reclaim. Alaska's ranked choice means the top vote getter in November wins. I'm Julie Walker.
A woman facing a possible life sentence after the death of a man she injured as a baby has accepted a deal with prosecutors. Unraveling that story, correspondent Jennifer King.
In Fort Lauderdale, Florida, former babysitter Terry McCurchie has pleaded guilty to manslaughter for the 2019 death of Benjamin Dowling. Investigators believe she shook Dowling when he was a baby in her care back in 1984, causing a brain hemorrhage that left him unable to ever walk, talk, or feed himself.
She's going to plead guilty. 3 years Florida State prison, followed by 10 years probation with all the normal special conditions.
McCurchie took a deal in 1985 and received a light sentence, telling reporters at the time that she was innocent. After Dowling's death, she was indicted on a first-degree murder charge. In a letter of apology read by her attorney, McCurchie says she was feeling overwhelmed taking care of numerous children when she struck him. I'm Jennifer King.
The war in Ukraine has taken a stark turn as Moscow endured one of Ukraine's largest aerial attacks since the fighting began 910 days ago, which included 45 drones. Correspondent Emma Burrows reports Russian troops are fighting for survival in the Kursk region, where Ukrainian forces captured more territory inside Russia's borders than the Kremlin has seized in eastern Ukraine.
I think this move was totally unexpected, and we've seen that by the response from the Russian military, which frankly has been scrambling to respond to this stunning Ukrainian offensive in the Kursk region. There have been reports that they've been drafting in conscripts and they've been moving forces from the far west of Russia in Kaliningrad, the exclave in Europe, in order to effectively fight some of Ukraine's most battle-hardened units. The people of Russia are kept in a world where propaganda is king, and they are being told on Russian state television that our guys are pushing back the Ukrainian advance. In terms of the pressure on Putin domestically, there are two separate areas of pressure, I think, where desire for change could come from, and that's the people and that's the elite. And in Russia, the overriding force is the elite.
Correspondent Emma Burrows reporting. Microsoft Windows announced an upcoming feature, then shelved it due to a security issue. Now, thanks to a new AI feature, it looks like your PC will be able to go back in time, allowing you to search anything you did. Here's correspondent Chuck Palm with that in today's Tech Report.
A controversial new feature for Windows 11 is coming back, called Windows Recall. Recall was announced back in May and listed as an AI search feature for your local PC. By periodically taking screenshots, it would allow you to go back in time and search anything that you had been working on your Windows 11 PC. After testers expressed concern over the features and its security, Windows shelved Recall for the time being. Announced in an updated blog post, the VP of Windows Devices at Microsoft said that they're set to go live, at least for testing, on Windows Copilot Plus PCs and will be released this October. After some feedback, Microsoft announced that Windows 11 would not come with the feature turned on automatically, and you will have to be enrolled in Windows Hello to become an activated user of the tool. Tell us what you think at allthetoptech.tech. I'm Chuck Palm.
America in the Morning's Robert Workman has a look at sports.
Baseball Wednesday, the Yankees hammered the Guardians 8-1. Aaron Judge hit 2 homers to raise his league-leading total to 47.
If I don't usually come through, Juan's in front of me either driving somebody in or doing something special. If Juan walks or doesn't come through, I'm right behind him trying to do some damage. So it's fun. We're really feeding off each other.
Juan Soto belted number 36. New York has the best record in the AL. Phillies edged the Braves 3-2 in a battle of NL East Titans. Dodgers completed their sweep of the Mariners. LA has the best record in the majors. Royals shut out the Angels. Michael Lorenzen and the Lozenges with a 4-hitter. Rangers nipped the Pirates on Wyatt Langford's 2-out RBI base hit in the bottom of the 9th. Mets edged the Orioles. Pinch hitter Jesse Winker went deep to end it. New York's second walk-off blast in the 3-game series. Cardinals rally past the Brewers in 10 innings, scoring twice on bases-loaded walks in the bottom of the 9th, then getting a game-ending granny from Nolan Arenado. Reds rip the Blue Jays. Ellie De La Cruz becomes the 5th player in the modern era to amass 20 homers and 60 stolen bases in the same season. Joey Votto, the Toronto native who spent all 17 of his big league seasons in Cincinnati, announced his retirement. Twins scored 7 times in the 4th as they pummeled the Padres. White Sox scored 4 in the 9th to trip the Giants. Wins for the Diamondbacks, Rays, Red Sox, Nationals, and Tigers. NFL preseason week 3 begins tonight with the Colts visiting the Bengals and the Bears at the Chiefs, opening night 2 weeks away. And the second leg of golf's FedEx Cup playoffs begins today with the BMW Championship at Castle Rock, Colorado. That's Thursday Sports.
Thank you, sir. Anti-Israel protesters may not want to hear their story when America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. As her Eras tour is ending in Europe, singing star Taylor Swift for the first time has addressed the canceled concerts in Vienna, Austria due to a terrorist threat. Kevin Carr reports.
Taylor Swift has publicly spoken out about the alleged terrorist plot that caused her Vienna shows to be canceled earlier this month. On Wednesday, after her sellout performances at Wembley Stadium in London were completely wrapped, the singer took to Instagram to address the whirlwind of events from the European leg of the Eras tour. After thanking her crew members and performers, she described the cancellation of the Vienna shows as, quote, devastating and having filled her with, quote, a new sense of fear and a tremendous amount of guilt. She felt bad for her fans who missed the concerts, but she said she was grateful they were grieving concerts and not lives. Swift also thanked British authorities for keeping her fans safe during the 5 Wembley Stadium shows. The singer pushed back against those criticizing her for not speaking out sooner, saying, quote, in cases like this one, silence is actually showing restraint. She said her goal was to finish the European tour safely, which she did. For Swift's full statement, visit her Instagram account @TaylorSwift. The Eras Tour returns to North America this fall with 5 more cities through December. I'm Kevin Carr.
There was a former president, former House Speaker, politicians, comedians, singers, including Stevie Wonder, and even a Republican who spoke at Wednesday night's Democratic National Convention. But the 2 people whose story touched the audience, bringing some to tears, was that of the parents of Hersh Goldberg Poland, now held for over 320 days by Hamas terrorists in Gaza. Correspondent Haya Panjwani reports.
The parents of a 23-year-old American taken hostage by Hamas during the October 7th attack on Israel have given a speech at the Democratic National Convention. They were greeted with an extended standing ovation and chants by thousands of Democratic delegates in Chicago. The parents of Hersh Goldberg Poland pleaded for the release of the dozens of people who continue to be held captive in Gaza. Here's his father, John Poland.
This is a political convention, but needing our only son and all of the cherished hostages home is not a political issue. It is a humanitarian issue.
The parents steered clear of politics, but said President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris are working tirelessly for a deal to release the hostages and end the fighting in Gaza. I'm Haya Panjwani.
That's our show for today, Thursday, August 22nd, 2024. America in the Morning is produced by Jeff McKay. Senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.